It'd been a while since the community mental health team had heard from Belle, if I'm honest.
On the basis of that meeting, you made the decision to admit Mrs. King to a crisis assessment unit.
Belle and I made that decision together.
And Mr. King, was he supportive?
No. Far from it, in fact. He claimed the only problem was that Belle had stopped taking her medication, but they'd fixed that now.
How long was Mrs. King at the centre?
Not long. Belle discharged herself soon. Too soon, in my opinion.
What happened next?
I went to visit her at home. She was very on edge about the possibility of me running into her husband. When I suggested meeting somewhere else, somewhere he wouldn't see us, she refused. She told me he was tracking her phone.
And how did Mrs. King seem when she told you this? Angry? Resentful?
Anything but. In my opinion, she was frightened. Broken, even.
Did Mrs. King ever tell you, outright, that she was being abused by her husband?
She didn't have to.
Why was that?
Because in my opinion, it was clear she was being controlled by him. And I know for a fact her cousin Charity shared my concerns.
But Mrs. King never explicitly communicated to you or your team that her husband was being abusive towards her? A simple yes or no will suffice.
No.
Thank you. No further questions.
So, Rachel seemed to have some serious concerns about the nature of Belle and Tom's relationship.
Well, she'd only met the man once, and she herself admitted that Belle never even suggested that he'd ever been abusive towards her.
Yes, but it was clearly as much about what she was picking up from Belle, not to mention what Belle's cousin told her.
But if Tom's the abuser that Belle claims he is, why didn't she just talk to somebody? It's not like she didn't have an opportunity.
Where do you want me to start, eh? Because she felt trapped, because she was terrified about what he might do?
Because, in spite of everything, she still loved him. Is that what you're saying?
Oh, because deep down she knew she'd made it all up, that none of it was real. OK, I think it's time that we had another show of hands. Let's start with guilty. Right, that's 4 this time. And not guilty? OK, that's 2-1 in favour of the defendant. Looks like we're finally getting somewhere.
Right, what do you reckon? I think one final push and we might just have a majority verdict.
Well, that would be great, but we've got to remember what the judge said. We need a unanimous verdict. OK, back to it.
Right. I appreciate that some of us might be starting to flag. We're all keen to get home and all the rest of it, but come on. We owe it to Belle to make sure that we have considered every detail, that we've weighed up every testimony.
Of course.
Right, but there's still 4 of us standing in the way of an early finish. Just saying.
And I wouldn't exactly say early.
Unless Team Tom has claimed anyone else in the break.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what you're implying.
Not implying anything.